Hey, welcome in, folks. This is Dan French, Wealthytainment, and I want to say thank you so much for tuning in and watching this episode. I have a great show for you today. I have an article that I want to bring up, a very interesting article that Mr. Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, came out and stated, the way to become wealthy, or at least his path to become wealthy. And I think that he's trying to say this is the main way to do it, or one of the big ways to do it, is using other people's money. Yep. OPM, right? Leveraging other people's money, including your own, but you're not putting all your money into one investment, leveraging other people's money with investors and crowdfunding to try to gain wealth. And that's something he brought up. So interesting about what he said. A lot of people, I think they don't have the proper knowledge or mindset or just the direction, right, of how to get started. And one of the things he's saying is just, that lazy people spend their own money or use their own money, where intelligent people or people that are entrepreneurs thinking outside the box, they leverage other people's money by either sphere of influence or networking or whatever you have it. And so I just look at it and say it's a very interesting thing to talk about. I'm going to listen to what he has to say. We'll all listen to this, and then I'll come back and give you my opinion and what his insight is. So let's go take a look at this.
A long time ago, when we first started Millennial Money, I made my usual wise ass remark, only lazy people use their own money. And that's because I have spent much of my life raising capital. Today you have crowdfunding and all that stuff. But the reason I had to learn to raise money was because I had no money. And so if you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, in there, my rich dad always said, never say I can't afford it. And it was my rich dad and many of my teachers subsequent to that. They said, lazy people always say I can't afford it. I don't have the money. That's why they're poor. They have a poor mindset. So instead of figuring out how to raise money, it's just really easy to be a loser. And I call it losers. It pisses them off. Because we all have the power, if we wanted to not be poor if we learned how to raise money. So I hear, and the reason I get upset, I still get hot. Look at this. My poor dad, my PhD father, he always said to me, he says, I'd be a rich man if I didn't have you kids. And I said, well, Dad, it's not my fault you had kids. I just can't afford it because I have kids. And the more he said that, the angrier I got. So when I met my rich dad at age 9, he says, well, that's why your old man's poor, because he's lazy. He thinks his PhD is going to carry him. He says, everybody can say, I don't have money, I can't afford it. He says, that's why he's poor. He's lazy. But my father kept going back to school, Stanford, University of Chicago, Northwestern. He never learned any of this stuff. They still don't know it because most teachers want a paycheck, pension, and tenure. They want job security. So the mindset is different, and that's what they teach the kids. The reason I say only lazy people use their own money is because it takes much more intelligence to raise capital. And so I've never been able, ever since my rich dad, as a little boy, my rich dad forbade me from ever saying, I can't afford it. He says, figure out how you can afford it. How can you do something? Figure out how you can do something. So over my lifetime, most of the projects I've started, I've never had any money. I like not having money because it forces me to think. I get creative. I have to educate myself. I have to talk to rich.
So you can see what he has to say about that, really. If you look at the situation that he went through, he was forced, right? You got to give him some credit and some acknowledgement that it's a very tough situation where if your dream is to become wealthy or to make money, I think everybody wants a sustained amount of money per month or, yearly or whatever it is to live the lifestyle, right? It's a lifestyle you're trying to accomplish. I think that's what Americans really want. And when you look at how they've gotten there, like for instance, Robert Kiyosaki, he got there because of networking, using other people's money, influencing himself to get investors to work with him and invest their money with him. That's the way that his approach was to this. And I can't disagree with that. I agree that you have to do that. Now, there is some challenges. Okay. Again, it's mindset. I don't know if you're a loser because you don't really know how to do this. I think many people want to get started. I always look at it like being an entrepreneur, and this is not a race, it's a crusade, but it's how to get started, right? It's not that you're a loser. It's maybe you just don't know how to get started. And once you get that train going, then you're going to keep that train going. And now it's just, you keep multiplying and keep step by step, you keep growing on your path of becoming wealthy. Now, one of the things I want to bring up is you have to have a networking environment or people around you that can help sustain that wealth or benefit from each other. It's interesting because a lot of influencers and people that are real estate investors, and they put a lot of this stuff out where you have to spend $10, $15, $20,000 to be a part of this group. And then you have all this money pulling together, and then they're all trying to push each other business. And I think that's a hard part to get started with. If you're saying you want to get into a wealthy, networking party or group, I'm not saying that you can't go find a networking party, but to get that upper tier, you a lot of times have to spend money to make money, right? They always say that you have to spend money. There's a lot of people out there that charge $20,000, $30,000 to go into their networking event or be a part of what they have to, as far as, we all know there's a lot of influences out there that are doing that. Now, there's other people, that have done things where they've tried to pay for their kids to go to a certain school, right? You guys remember when Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman, they came out and they cheated on the sense that they spent $500,000 to get their kids into USC and cheated on their SAT scores, right? And why would they do that? Well, they did that because they're trying to get those kids not only a good college degree to get started, but also the networking part and who you meet inside of a school like USC or a Harvard or a Stanford. You network with those people, and now let's just be honest, it's who you know a lot of times by you getting that job or that great CEO job at that corporation. And a lot of times that's what really catapults people into a position of success. I think Robert did it different, where he started from scratch, learned things, and then, did it on his own. And I think, he's got a little clout. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't consider people losers or the fact that they're, lazy because they're using their own money. I think a lot of times it's their mindset. I'm going to also say that there is some people out there that are lazy. Okay, let's just be honest. But you can't classify everybody being lazy because they don't understand how to have something or take care of something in a way where you're going out networking and leveraging your money. A lot of times it takes a little bit of money to start that process, right? So I'm going to first say that. Secondly, I want to bring something up. Your sphere of influence is really big, right? I brought this article up I want to bring up. So in many cases, the difference between success and failure can come down to who you know. We just said that. In an entrepreneur business, we have a term I coined, the circle of influence. The circle of influence, essentially everyone you interact with, it can extend to everyone they interact with. So it's like a big reciprocity, right? Everything keeps coming full circle, okay? And when you look at that situation, that is nothing but truth there, because a lot of times, when you talk about in different industries, who you know or the relationships you build ultimately determines and has defining success attached to it. And I think with Robert saying that, I think it's important that, yes, I agree with it. I disagree in the sense that he's saying they're losers. And, again, maybe he's pounding his chest a little bit. That's cool. No problem. But for me, I think everybody has a shot. Having a PhD or having a degree does not discredit you. And I'm going to say that again. That's not for me. And maybe some people like that 9-to-5 job where they're going 9 to 5 and they have a set amount of money that's coming in. If they're making $100,000, $120,000 a year, maybe that's all they want. Maybe they don't live a lifestyle or constantly wanting to get the next thing or the next big thing and, live up with the Joneses or have that upper tier lifestyle and become wealthy. But at the end of the day, like I said, having a degree is not a bad thing. But if you're trying to sustain wealth, majority of people don't sustain wealth working for somebody else. And I think that's what he's trying to say. That's why for me, I pride myself on investment properties, on trying to get and invest into different things. Always have an open mind, cryptocurrency, whatever it is, because you got to diversify, right? And you got to make sure that all your eggs are not in one basket. People, he was talking about 401k and all these other things. I agree with that. Who knows what could happen with that? And also, if it's just a set amount of money, you don't have a way to keep, capitalizing and making more money or building more wealth. And I think it just comes down to the individual of what their goals are and what they're trying to accomplish in life in general. And I think that's ultimately what it is. I think there's two things. Self-leadership is important. That has to be something that you have to be able to lead yourself, wake up every morning and lead yourself and become somebody that is just on a crusade, like I said. And the next thing is, this is not a race. Nobody has to say you have to be there by 30, by 35, by 40. The big thing is getting those relationships in place, having that process coming up with people that may have the influence or the benefit of changing your life, and constantly putting yourself in those positions with those people, in those networking groups, in the crowdfunding sphere of influence that we talked about, your circle of influence. And I think that is the thing that people need to get from what he has to say. If you guys have any questions, please leave any comments in the comment section. I'm Dan French. I'll see you guys at the next one. I'm out of here.